Friends, today I'll be dealing with a topic which is, frankly speaking, if you ask me, it's not very important, but still there has been increasing demand because normally when I cover your paper 2, I take up only one regional grouping and SARC already have covered. But sometimes, in my long career of teaching students, there has been lot of feedback that no, I should do some at least 10-minute video on ASEAN, because that is a regional grouping which is becoming quite significant from point of view of our foreign policy. That we will see under a separate paper called India and ASEAN. Let us, get some idea about this regional grouping. Not a very in-depth idea, but some idea you should have, because as I said, this region has become extremely significant for not only for our economic development, but even for our diplomacy and foreign policy. Right? That we will see when we cover India and ASEAN. Let us get a brief idea of what ASEAN is and what it constitutes. See, ASEAN, as you know, is an intergovernmental organization. It is basically intergovernmental or organization which comprises of 10 Southeast Asian countries, right? Whereby they have cooperation in the areas, primarily it is for economic cooperation, but sometimes it is for political, security, military, social, cultural integration among its members and other Asian countries. Now, ASEAN, if you expand it, it becomes Association of Southeast Asian Nations. As I said, it consists of 10 members. Originally, it started with 5. Subsequently, many other countries started joining it. And it is an example of, despite a lot of economic asymmetry, it is an example of a successful regional grouping, right? So, when it was established in the year 1967 by 5 countries. That is Indonesia, Malaysia, Philippines, Thailand, Singapore. Subsequently, as I said, other countries also joined like Brunei, Vietnam, Laos, Myanmar and Cambodia in the year 84, 95, 97, 97 and 98 respectively, right? Then it has, as I said, you can imagine the success of SARC from the viewpoint that it has a common constitution, it has a common market, right? Though you will not find the level of the kind of integration which European Union has, but certainly it is an example of a successful regional grouping, and it is certainly a very successful when we contrast this with SARC, our own regional grouping, right? So it has one flag, emblem and charter, common constitution, as I said, and motto: one vision, one identity and one community. Its headquarters is located in Jakarta, Indonesia. Working language is English. When it was established, 8th August 1967, Bangkok Declaration, right? It has an area of 4.4 million square kilometers, which is 3% of the total land area, and population of 640 million, which is 8.8% of the world population. And you know, its charter came into that means its constitution, which has come into existence on 6th December 2008, right? And the combined GDP of this particular region is almost 2.8 trillion per capita income, which is almost, if you look at the size of economy, it could be almost 7th or 8th largest, because right now India is almost 3 trillion. So it is behind only to USA, China, Japan, Germany, France and India. Otherwise, you can call it almost a 7th largest economy in terms of size, right? So, and most impressive thing is that it has a per capita income of $4,160. If you take individual countries like Singapore, Malaysia, it will be much more than that. But the thing is that other countries which are not all that well developed, say like Thailand, Burma, Myanmar, Laos, they have slightly pulled it down. Otherwise, it is an economically vibrant region. What are the aims and objectives of ASEAN? See, to accelerate the economic growth, social progress, and cultural development in the region through joint endeavors in the spirit of equality and partnership. One, to promote regional peace and stability, right? Then to maintain close and beneficial cooperation with existing international and regional organizations with similar aims. See, a great thing about ASEAN is that it is not only cooperating within the regional grouping, but as a regional grouping also it is cooperating with other regional groupings and major countries of the world. See, despite having hostile relations with China, there is China's trade with ASEAN region is huge, right? And the first ASEAN summit was held in 1976. This was called as Treaty of Amity and Cooperation. And what was the principles on which it was based? It was based on principles like mutual respect for independence, sovereignty, equality, territorial integrity, and national identity of all nations. Something like our Panchashil. It's a different thing that China stabbed us in back after signing Panchashil, right? I mean, hear my lecture on Indian foreign policy, right? Then bright side of, right of every state to lead to its national existence free from external interference, subversion and coercion. Non-interference in each other's internal affairs. Settlement of, something like pacific settlement of dispute, that is peaceful settlement of disputes. Then renunciation of threat as use of force, effective cooperations among themselves. So these were the objectives of ASEAN. Something like, as I said, our Panchashil. Then at the end of the Cold War, ASEAN Regional Forum was established in the year 1994 with the name of Consolidating Peace Stability in the region. And obviously, it has been a very, very peaceful region, despite certain problems, political problems inside the countries. But as a region, this region has become, remained quite tranquil as well as peaceful. Then ARF. What is ARF? Which comprises, along with ASEAN nations, countries such as Australia, Canada, China, EU, India, Japan, South Korea, Mongolia, right? ARF calls for total cessation of nuclear testings, right? The states refrain from weaponizing and deploying missiles in this region. It believes in confidence building measures, preventive diplomacy, and pacific settlement of disputes. So, under this treaty, they want to keep it as a zone of peace, right? Then there was a ZOPFAN agreement. There is not much in this. Then what is the charter of ASEAN? That is, its constitution is legally binding. Unlike SAARC or unlike any other regional grouping, it's, you'll be surprised to know that even European Union does not have a constitution of its own, whereas here ASEAN has a charter, which is legally binding agreement, codifies rules and norms, promotes accountability and compliance norms. It is like constitution of ASEAN. It has 2 summits per year and a post of Secretary General. Then disintegration of USSR, end of Cold War, ideological conflicts paved the way for integration besides other factors like, as I said, globalization and emerging threat of China. All these factors combined together and promoting cooperation in this region. Then within this, there are important sub-institutions like ASEAN Security Community, ASEAN Economic Community, ASEAN Socio and Cultural Committee. How it is different from European Union, right? This is different, like EU was established in 52, ASEAN in 67. EU is a group of developed countries, ASEAN is a group of developing countries. European Union is a case of integration, ASEAN is a case of cooperation. EU is supranational from the beginning. ASEAN is intergovernmental. Supranational means there is lot of integration. It has common, not besides common market, it has common finance ministry, common reserve bank, common arbitration system, common currency. All these things are common in this region, right? So this is slightly different from European Union. As I said, European Union is a case of integration, whereas ASEAN is a case of regional cooperation. It's a case of cooperation, right? And I mean, besides this year of development, these are not of much significance. And this again I got from your notes, I mean class notes of Vajiram, right? EU is a case of integration, ASEAN is a case of cooperation, right? So these are the difference between integration. Then EU participation of citizens through common institutions. As I said, it has common parliament, there is a common voting system, right? ASEAN is confined to governments. EU introduced qualified majority, ASEAN works on consensus. Now what is qualified majority? Qualified majority is that majority of those nations, whatever is the nations 2030, right, plus those nations must represent majority of the population also. So this is called as qualified majority. ASEAN still does not have supranational bodies, like as I said, common parliament, common currency, common central bank, common court justice system, but it has a common charter, common constitution, which EU lacks. And you can understand the success of ASEAN if you compare it with other regional groupings, and especially if you view it from the point of view of intra-regional trade. Intra-regional trade is almost 55% in this region, whereas it is only 5% in case of SAARC, and it is 50% in case of NAFTA. It is quite less than 50% in many other regional groupings like ECOWAS or like LAFTA and all that, Latin American Free Trade Zone and all that, right? And you can understand its success from the simple fact that India as a country does not have any free trade agreement to date within ASEAN, within SAARC, whereas we have free trade agreement with ASEAN, right? Although RCEP is a different game altogether, but nevertheless we do have free trade agreement with ASEAN. So this is something about ASEAN, right? I hope you got a fundamental understanding and certain basic background of what this national grouping or what this regional grouping is. And secondly, there can be possible 1 or 2 questions from this. For that, what I have explained is only a background. You will have to substantiate it with whatever is the latest in the field. In fact, I can expect a question like India and ASEAN rather than ASEAN in general, right? India's cooperation with ASEAN, and that is going to be my next topic of explanation.